Oh. Hello and welcome to HorsePlayer Happy Hour. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, no longer in the Brooklyn bunker, in what I call the Sky Bunker up here, where we're going double-handed Maine action. I doubt you're going to be able to see with the glare, but there's a really nice-looking lake out there, trust me. Up here in western Maine, near the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Very excited for a special edition of the show and for everything we get to talk about next week. We'll be up in Saratoga. We'll start a nice long run of shows in Saratoga. And joining me, his presence was in doubt for a second there, but as he always does, he pulled it out of the fire. Coming to us from another location in Maine, the undisclosed location in Maine, he is, from his own eponymous podcast, TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, what's going on, my man?
I hope you can hear me. This was dicey at best for a minute. And you know what the real problem is, and I feel like a real heel. I was trying to make bets for the upcoming race at Horseshoe Indianapolis. And unfortunately, because of where I live, I can't bet on that track, I found out. So
weird.
Yeah, so I was there's some weird things going on in Maine and other places. Politics. But we're here. We made it. We're good. Just in the nick of time. Looking forward to talking about these two races, the races at Belmont, and anything else anybody wants to talk about.
I like it. For we'll start production meeting in the middle of the show. What races at Belmont should we do that will also then make into the opening of the late week show? I've been enjoying that gimmick. I figure it saves you 10 minutes of your Friday too if we just bake it in here. I think it works. Nobody's complained yet. But what just the big, I'm going to be having full coverage of the Pick Six with Matt Vagvolji on there, brought to us by our friends at Racelens. We're gonna have that anyway. So we can just do the grade ones, but if you have thoughts on all four of the stakes, we can do that. What's your inclination?
I have only looked at the two grade ones to this point. So
perfect. I think that's the best plan.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that's absolutely the best plan. We're gonna do that. We'll get to that. We have a few minutes. We have 10 or 12 minutes until this first Indiana Grand race that we're going to be covering. So maybe we can do the open. Maybe we'll do that in this first segment. We also have a guest in Sam Stinson telling a story we love to tell. We always talk on these shows. What are we doing here? Well, we're doing a few things. We're having fun, doing a live stream on a Thursday afternoon, hopefully cold beverage in hand. Got a little Tuckerman's Pale Ale, one of the local breweries here that's done a really good job sort of adjusting to the modern palate. I'm loving this pale ale. It tastes very much like something you might get in England, which is always cool. But so we're here to do that. We're here to preview races, especially Breeders' Cup Win and You're In races. We do not have, if I'm not mistaken, we do not have any of those coming up this weekend. But with that's often a focus. And I guess we could take a minute and take a quick look back at the Princess Rooney from last weekend. And there was another Stephen Foster, of course, the other big Whale race. But we're also here to play in a contest and to support thoroughbred aftercare. And there's three ways you can win your way into the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge through these broadcasts, through these contests that we do every Thursday. One is the traditional route. Sam Stinson, we'll be talking about that a little bit later in the show. My first beer, and I'm already slurring. That's not a good sign. And then, but we also have the HorsePlayer Happy Hour Tour, which is a phenomenal deal for players because this isn't some tour. Sometimes when there's a tour, the tour can be like a little bit of a tax on the more casual player because you have to play so much to participate in the prize pool. Not so the way we designed the HorsePlayer Happy Hour Tour, because any week you play, if you happen to finish in the top two, you get into our private tournament limited to 80 players at the end of the year where you get to win a $10,000 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. Of course, we also do want something to reward those loyalists who play every week. That's the HorsePlayer Happy Hour Tour champion, David Browning, our reigning one. He got off to a good start in the contest today. I noticed, not sure how he's doing now. But we've got the points right there up on the board right now. We actually have a pretty nice score from John Twomey there with 146. Wendy Long with 90, Terry Crump 87, Truls Engebretson very active last year 78, another regular in 5th and 6th with Mark Wilgard and PJ Priskenis, John Heyercheck Daniel Edwards, Joe Solito, Peter Savage, and Michael Cavana rounding out the top 10. Oh, we'll give a shout out to Bill Chenver too. Very, very active live bankroll contest player of great quality. And since I saw his name on the screen, we might as well shout out Don Marquardt as well. Anyway, at the end of the year, whoever's number is the biggest of those people will also get that seat. And you, the participants, you don't play for that at all. There's no extra entry fee. We charge nothing for that. Completely added to the prize pool. $20,000 in addition to the ability to win your way in the regular way. So let's talk about the regular way. This week, all right, our entries were a little down. We understand Belmont not running probably messed with us a little bit here, but a respectable 148 to play in this contest. All the races from Horseshoe Indy. This contest started about 210. That number will vary week to week. Check back in, horseplayers.com, the place to go and participate in these games. It costs $20 to play. And Matt, I probably left out the best part, which I'll leave to you, the fact that these contests benefit Thoroughbred Aftercare.
Yes, the juice, the VIG goes to our friends at TAA and TRF as far as making sure that once the horses that we love, we like to watch them run in the afternoons, we like to bet on them. Once their job on the track is done, we need to make sure they have a happy, safe place to go once their career is over. And thankfully, this is a good opportunity for not just playing in contests and talking about some races and a little bit of Thursday afternoon entertainment, but it can hopefully help in the long run, in the big picture, about making sure that the equine athlete is taken care of when they're all done on the track.
How much time do we have until this first race at Horseshoe Indy? Should we try it? If we have 10 minutes, I say
we have 9 minutes.
9. All right. I think we're going to wait. We're going to wait. We'll get 2 segments into the next one. With that time, I think maybe we'll, first things first.
I lied, Pete. We have 15. No, I'm all over the place. Never mind. Hang on. Wait a minute. We have
there it is. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Thank you, producer Craig, for coming up with that. That's okay. That's okay. It's the beginning of a long and exciting summer. Well, let's start with that. How was your trip? Let's look back. That's what we're going to change my mind again. We're going to look back. Tell me everything about your trip to Churchill. Did you, how many pounds did you lose wearing the suit on Saturday in that heat? And what was your overall experience like?
Conservatively 1,000 degrees. It was just so hot. And I thought the interesting thing was, I know it was really, really warm Preakness weekend in Baltimore.
It was.
I thought Louisville was twice as hot. And I know that's a bit overzealous and a bit of hyperbole, but it's just like it was out of control hot. But the racing I thought was phenomenal. Not just the Fleur de Lis. I thought She Dares the Devil. Arguably, that was as good as she's ever looked. I know she had a nice tracking trip, but I thought she looked really solid. She won a race that was part of the new Breeders' Cup sort of bonus series, the Dirt Dozen. So there's some added incentive to run in a few of those races and hopefully earn some more money toward your entry fee, which is not a win in your in race. But I thought that was spectacular. And then, the big one, going into it, you and I, not saying that it was anything brilliant. Edzo also liked Olympiad as you did. I liked American Revolution. I thought they both ran winning races. Of the two, Olympiad's race was considerably better, in my opinion, just based on the dynamics. I thought American Revolution got a great ride from Luis Saez. I thought he would be more forward than he had been in other races. In fact, he was right there. And I think when Luis saw 5 horses lined up across the track, he said, fine, you guys all figure it out. I'll come and pick up the pieces. And he very nearly did. It was just a matter of an exceptional performance from Olympiad. And the buyer numbers are hot. The Timeform US numbers are even more impressive. So I thought we saw at least 2 that will be main players in the Breeders' Cup Classic the first Saturday in November, assuming they stay healthy.
And you did a great job, I thought, highlighting in your coverage the race that this Breeders' Cup Classic is shaping up to be. And I have to say, I'm feeling real good about Olympiad as a low-key podcast horse. Not, and it's not like this isn't a horse I talked about before it broke his maiden or anything like that. But I do get to feel smart for a few minutes anyway about predicting the big season for this horse before the season started, because it's exceeded expectations, and now the numbers are starting to match up to what I had sensed was the ability. You talked about the Timeform US rating on this. How serious of a contender at this point is Olympiad to you for a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic?
Well, I think the thing that's most interesting to me is the number of fast horses we have. It's not like you have, and in more recent years, you alluded to earlier on my show this week, I talked about the 5 most recent Breeders' Cup Classics in comparison to this prospective group right now, the first week of July. This group would already be faster than what we've seen for the 5 prior years, and we've seen some good horses.
Yeah.
It's the top end that makes this group, I think, a little bit not an anomaly, but sort of over the top as far as the exceptional piece is concerned, because you have a handful of horses that are capable of 110 plus buyers. I think Olympiad is arguably, he's not the horse to beat. I still think that's Flightline until proven otherwise. But after him, I could certainly see an argument for number 2. I voted him number 3 on my Breeders' Cup Classic top 10 this week behind Country Grammar, because again, until Country Grammar proves otherwise, I don't think he's done anything on the track to make me think he's not a legitimate threat to win that race, especially at 1.25 miles. I was chatting with Jerry Bailey after the show on Saturday, and he brought up something that I think is important. But I don't know if it might have been Randy also, but the idea that American Revolution, I thought he ran, again, a winning race. I voted him 4th in my top 10. The concern would be, I feel like he is the kind of horse that really would appreciate Belmont Park. Those big wide turns, and 1.25 miles for him there is different than 1.25 miles at Keeneland, where you're going to probably need to be a little bit more up on the muscle, a little bit closer. And again, I know I said he was very close to the pace, and Saez pulled him back, and I thought he did the right thing. I do wonder, I don't think he has necessarily the agility that an Olympiad does or a Flightline does. And perhaps that puts him a slight notch below, but purely on numbers, I mean, he is as fast as some of the other horses we've seen for the past handful of years go on and win the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I just think it's an exceptional group. And as far as, long-winded way of saying Olympiad, I would have no issue with anyone making him number 2 right now, or even number 1 if you were really so, inclined.
The only case against Flightline is, really, will he make the race and will he show up on the big day? Anytime a horse, as Nick Tamaro has said many times about Flightline, runs by appointment only, it does give you a little bit of concern when they have to be wrapped in cotton wool to the degree that he has. So if that's enough of a concern, then I could see putting Olympiad number 1 at this point. I do think I'm enough of a speed figure monkey, we'll say, that I've still got to probably put Flightline on my technical list of the top 10. Now, we got a lot of ground to cover here, and now suddenly it's only 2 minutes to post. I will make one other point that I love this idea. Maybe we should do in other weeks, bring up the graphic of your top 10. I think it's just a great point for conversation. And maybe if we're feeling froggy, you and I just make our own little top 3, whatever, for other divisions, just as a way to continue to start thinking about the Breeders' Cup as we go forward. I don't want to let this look back at the win in your ins pass without having a quick word on the Princess Rooney with Breeders' Cup champion CC, showing once again how terrific she is. One of my favorite mares in training. I used her, but I tried to get a little bit clever and didn't make her a selection last week. And she's just very, very good. And you've got to figure in a typical way that her race, the Filly and Mare Sprint, is run. She could join that short list of 2-time Breeders' Cup champions. What do you think about her and what she did in the Princess Rooney?
Thought she was great. And, we talked about it a little bit last week. I think she is a one-turn horse through and through. I was proud of the filly that I bet in there, Spirit Wind. Thought she ran really well as a 3-year-old against older horses. And she's just not nearly as good as CC is. And there's no disrespect or no disgrace in that. But boy, CC, if she continues on with this sort of form, she's absolutely a player at Keeneland in a few months' time.
Let's talk about this race at Indiana. This would have been one of my stronger opinions of the day. And on the podcast, we just did, I was a little concerned about changing gears on everybody and putting in a track that we haven't used before. So we decided to give a little bit of an extra push and did a special show with Blake Jesse, who's a great player who people know from In the Money Plus and other things he's done over on ITM and elsewhere, getting him with his perspective of his home track there. And he made an amazing case for Zolo. And I was concerned when we talked about it that there was a pretty nice number in the morning line that I didn't guess was going to be preserved, and recommended folks trying to get a live, blind leg of like a pick 3 payout or something. Well, if you haven't done that yet, it's too late now. And this horse, I'd still take the 6-5. Honestly, I think this is a very meaningful drop in class. and the form of that first race working out very, very well. I think we're going to see some good things from this runner here at Horseshoe Indy.
What I was going to try to do before I realized I couldn't bet on the race was play a sort of keyed trifecta. I've done it in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge in the past. I'll do it again this year with the 6 and the 7. So I agree with you for all the reasons you laid out with the 7. But I thought Pablo's Son, first time dropping in for a tag, second off the bench, turf to dirt is a very positive move for this outfit over the past year at this track. 5 for 10, 9 in the money with a nearly $3 ROI. If I could go 6-7 all, 6-7 and 6-7, 6-7 all, that would be kind of how I would go about tiering this thing and press up the opinion of the 6-7, 6-7 sort of exact a piece of that and hope that the 9-1 can kind of juice some things up a little bit, especially if the chalk does end up prevailing. And maybe, something crazy happens and Student Prince runs third at a big number. So that's what I was going to do. I can't do it, so I'll just root for it.
We might be able to work something out here. I might have some internet tools that we can utilize. Even though I am in this great state of Maine, if we want to get going on that, we'll work out the math later on it. When you do a bet like that, I think it's a really interesting trifecta strategy. Do you mess around at all with the denominations you're playing? Do you use any type of, if it's not a proper Dutch, do you use any kind of Dutch principles, having it 7-6 more than 6-7 in the exacta, for example? Do you extend that to the tries at all, or do you just say what the heck and just you like the horses equally? You're happy to have that longer price extra times.
Yeah, the only time that I actually do a proper sort of Dutching out of things is if I'm playing two. I don't usually bet 3 horses to win, but if I play 2 horses to win, I'll Dutch those. But especially so in like daily doubles, that's the big thing for me. Where if I have 3 horses into one, I want to have it end up being an equal payout. If one pays, something much, much higher than the other, that one clearly doesn't get as much of whatever the base that I'm going to bet. With a bet like this, I'm content saying, let's go 6-7, 6-7 all. I'll press that up. Let's say 2x. So it could be a $2 bet, for whatever that is, and $1 for the 6-7 all, 6-7. In the Breeders' Cup betting challenge, I'm not opposed to even throwing in all 6-7, 6-7. Just because the pools are so huge, the prices are so large, and I just think I would really feel like a bum if it came in and I didn't have it that way. So maybe you want to say you're cutting into a little bit of your action in the other two, but I would rather have a little bit of a bigger pie than have nothing at all, especially in a tournament like that. So
I don't mind that at all when that's your strong opinion. You know what I mean? Like, the thing about all these things is it's hard when you talk about betting strategies and the try and the exact. It can come off being a little rote, like, hey, you're always supposed to do X, Y, Z, and you need to be more nimble than that, I think. But I like in a certain circumstance, given an opinion where you had one race and you were willing to really push in and you loved 2 horses, I have no problem at all sort of creating. Now, some people have no idea what I'm talking about. There's a bet that exists internationally called the Swinger or the Omni, where you have to get your horse, you have 2 of the 3 trifecta spots essentially. So you get, and you can do it manually through the try in a way that I'm going to guess is often going to pay a lot more. So I think that makes sense. So they're loading here at Indy. We've got some great questions. Another thing I should have mentioned about what's so fun and special about this show is we really love to have the audience be part of the show. We're going to do that in a more literal way after this race when we bring in Sam Stinson to tell his story about last week's HorsePlayer Happy Hour. But there's also a chance for folks to ask us questions. We've got some really good ones that I'm sure we'll get to before the end of the show. But I think now we'll talk through this race. We'll see how these horses run. I mean, look, obviously with the way this has been bet, my enthusiasm for my horses certainly gone down a bit, being that low of a price. And I do think you're some interesting angles on your other runner, especially at what are we looking at on the board now? 8, 10 to 1?
10. Yeah. I just ticked down a 9, I guess. But, I think the other thing too is it's a pretty nondescript group. I mean, you've got a number of horses that they've kind of shown what they are at this point. Zolo is kind of the, if there is an unknown, it is Zolo, especially coming out of that race that he did with those top 3 all winning next out, all moving up considerably on the buyer scale. But with Pablo's Son, at least there are some elements that I don't know that the horse can't win at this level on dirt. Clearly couldn't do it against better on dirt, but we haven't tried dropping so precipitously the way that this one is. And again, with the barn having success with the turf to dirt move at this track, I just thought it was an intriguing add-in at, as the second or third longest shot on the board.
Yeah, in these type of races, it makes a lot of sense anytime you can conjure a case for a horse at a price like that to at least get some combinations going. Now, this is a very long load. I don't know what's going on, if somebody's acting up back there, or if there's been some sort of incident. Nobody looks in like that much of a hurry, and it's an unusual, very tight shot on the gate. So I'm concerned maybe somebody's acting up behind or what have you. But hopefully we'll be off and underway. In the interest of getting to some of these questions before they break, like I said, we've got some good ones. Yeah, there's the horse that's acting up. It looks like the 3 runner. Dina says, big fan of the Breeders' Cup. Second best, only the Derby, a must-watch wagering event. I'm going to go one better. I love the Kentucky Derby, but I mean, for me, and I think for a lot of like true dyed-in-the-wool racing fans, there's just nothing better than the Breeders' Cup, Kentucky Derby included. Where does it rank for you, Matt? I mean, is it at the very top of the food chain as far as your favorite wagering days of the year?
Yeah, no knock to the Derby, but I don't think it's close. I would much rather, to me, if you take the Derby away from the Derby, you've got a really good day of racing. Really good day. If you take, I'm making it up, the Breeders' Cup Classic away from the Breeders' Cup, you still have the 2 best days in all of racing. So it's just the abundance of quality that you have with the Breeders' Cup that I think separates it, not just from a gambling standpoint, but you've got the best of the best. It's the best racing you're going to see in any given calendar year. So I'm firmly in the Breeders' Cup camp.
I think you nailed it. And racing, when it's great, really succeeds as sport and as gambling game. And that's what's so great about the Breeders' Cup is it is the day where on both of those fronts, the best of the best, as you point out, all year long, even in grade 1 races, you have a lot of ducking and shucking and jiving. And, Breeders' Cup is the Breeders' Cup, and everybody comes to play. And then you throw in the gambling opportunities. We talk all the time about the Breeders' Cup betting challenge, but just, one of the lines I remember from all those years ago in, actually, I'm now spacing if it was Winning Contest Player or 6 Secrets of Successful Bettors, but I think it was Maury Wolf saying, like, where else do you get such great paper, such great looking past performances on 15-1 shots? And it just doesn't exist anywhere else. There are amazing wagering opportunities. As we're off here about halfway through, more than halfway through this race, and the 3, Prince Shim, took control right from the start. I like the position Zolo was in, but he's under pressure now, and Prince Shim still has a pretty nice advantage. We'll see if Zolo can kick into gear and show some of that class that I think that he has. He is picking up now, and I think we go here with a chance as they're turning in. Where's your 6 runner? Any chance of making a run to come with him?
Was in a good spot and just started backing out. You'd be lucky to finish 4th right now. I'd be real disappointed if this 7 doesn't win.
Yeah, I mean, for a second there, looked like going to sweep right by, hanging a bit on the wrong lead, but now I think going 4th and going to do the business. Just an even money shot, but one that Blake mentioned about keying the day around, and we made some nice points on. So not going to have a major impact on our contest here today, but Zolo runs out a pretty easy winner in the end. Everything else, you'd only think the top 2 would be ones you'd have an eye on running back, and under most circumstances, that was they basically ran it like a match race. And Zolo, don't get a lot of style points, but heck, it's a maiden claimer for Indiana bred, so I'm not gonna knock it too much. Zolo does the business at short odds there in that race, and as soon as we get an official designation on that one, why don't we take a look at this contest leaderboard? Meantime, we're talking about the Derby, and Oscar has a Derby question: is Rich Strike just a one-hit wonder? Matt, where do you stand on that one?
In all likelihood, yes. But we have seen crazier things happen, and all he would need, in theory, is a little bit of pace. Again, don't hold the Belmont stakes against him. The Belmont is a bit of an anomaly from a racing shape standpoint. But if the Travers is indeed the next stop for that horse, if all of a sudden the speeds line up, I don't think it's totally out of the realm of possibility that he could get a piece. I don't think he's a likely winner of any of the big races anymore. But I wouldn't sit here and and totally discount him from finishing third or fourth. And if you're playing a try or a superfecta.
Yeah, or if it's the right setup, I could see if the whole world turns against him, and I don't think this is really going to happen because he's always going to be a famous horse who people are going to, I think gravitate towards more than they should. But I wouldn't rule out even betting him to win if he was the lone closer in a race full of speed going a distance where his stamina could come into play. What's the most likely scenario? One hit wonder. I mean, we've been seeing this since right after the race. I've been accused of being a surly jerk for my opinions on this person. Maybe people aren't wrong, but look, it's a gambling game. We were just talking about this. It's a gambling game too. So I'm never going to put my pride. There'd be very, 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 very few cases where I'd put my pride ahead of cashing a bet.
I look at it and say it's, kind of bringing back the idea of I still look at this. Yes, it is a gambling game. Don't get me wrong, but it is still a marquee sporting event to me. And there is the gambling side of me that looks at it and goes, kind of throws your tickets up in the air and says, phooey, this is a disaster. How could this possibly have happened? And then there's the sporting part of me that says that it's an historic event.
Great.
Right. You know what I mean? And I think you can, I don't think you have to be one or the other. I think you can be both. And that's where I land.
You'll never make it on Twitter with that kind of magnanimous.
I know. It's not a flashy, sexy idea, but what can I say? It's where I land. I can appreciate the event itself and also be PO'd that my tickets are nowhere.
You're 100% right. All right, we have more questions we'll get to, but let's do leaderboard and then let's get to Sam as our next orders of business. Michael Domable, important member of the In the Money family. I think he was second on the tour last year. Did a lot of damage in these games. Helped us out on the website writing about Colonial Downs. I think he's going to be doing that again. He is your current leader at 45-20. Nathan Kaczynski in second. GT Nixon. Howard Johnson, not the ball player, in fourth. Sam Stinson, who you're going to hear from in a minute. He's having another good week. Stephen McNatten, Steve Nemitz, William Moravik, Travis Urschel. That's not a name that I recognize. Good to see some new blood on the leaderboard as well. Rob Novicki, Matthew Abbott, James Sedor, Trenton DeWitt, and then another Michael Domable there in that tie for 13th. And I'm guessing it's 14 players who are going to go on to the game on Saturday from here. Well, the timing is good here, Matt. I think my beer is just about done. We could throw to the pre-tape. To avoid me doing that thing where I throw to myself, though, I'm going to have you throw to me. I think that sounds a little bit better.
All right. So we're PTF was able to catch up with Sam Stinson, who parlayed a big performance in one of these events last week into a $10,000 BCBC seat. Let's throw it to that, Greg.
Coming up next on the show, this is a story I've been wanting to tell for a long time with a guy who's been a long-time listener and supporter of everything we do, not just in the Money media days, but going all the way back to the place with the letters, DRF. We say the letters now sometimes. There's a new place with the letters. We'll say DRF. Back to the DRF days. He is going to be headed to the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge this fall. He's Sam Stinson. Sam, what's up, my man?
Pete, thanks for having me on. Actually, this is not my first appearance on your airwaves. I have called into the voicemail once and gave you an Andy Beyer impression that you thought was pretty good. So, yeah.
Did you say no shot? Was it that?
I said, "Go Shapper's a monster."
That's way better than mine.
Yeah.
That's way better than mine.
That was reference to
fantastic.
the Breeders' Cup back at Lone Star. So,
well, welcome back to the airwaves. First of all, tell people how you punched your ticket to this year's BCBC.
Well, I play in the HorsePlayers happy hour like every week almost. If I have the time, it's $20. It goes to a great cause. It's something that like I really feel strongly about, and every time you guys shout it out, I try to, I try to throw a little scratch their way as often as I possibly can. So,
appreciate that.
I played last week and I got 10th, I think. And so on Saturday, I was going on a hike and out to lunch with a friend, and I was like, I'll just pull up the PPs, I'll put them in, whatever. So I went on a hike up the Berkeley Hills, came back, and I was $30 ahead with like 5 races to go. And I was like, to quote you, I was like, man, maybe I'm home and hosed off. I don't know. I mean, I'm significantly, and somebody kept creeping up the board. And I think I was like $15, and he had the Wesley Ward horse. I can't remember exactly who it was in the last at Woodbine. And then I had the Michael Trombetta horse at Woodbine, and the Wesley Ward went off at, I think, 6-1 and paid 14 and 720 or something, and mine paid 720. So I needed my horse to get second to actually claim the spot. So
those are fun. Those are fun when you feel for the other person in that spot who has the winner, only to see that your place points edged you ahead. Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised that horse paid that much money, but it worked out for you. And for all the emphasis we put on the tour aspect of this and the ability to get into our private 80-person tournament at the end of the year to win a BCBC seat, and of course to win the overall tour like David Browning did last year to win a BCBC seat. There's also what you might call the traditional route where you just play along, you put up your 20, you get that entry into the Saturday game for 179, and you make it count like you did. So really just wanted to trumpet that story and, recognizing your name. I forgot about the voicemail, but recognizing you as that fantastic listener who sent me a fantastic spread of cheese many years ago that we enjoyed at some parties at the Little House on the East Side, where I'll be heading next week. So give us your stats. What I always ask people when they come on the show is, how old are you? Where do you live? And what do you do?
I'm 37. I've been a horse player all my life. In high school, I didn't go out for track. I went to the track instead. And Fauner Park, big shout out to Fauner Park in Grand Island, Nebraska. I live in the Bay Area. I used to work in government relations back in Nebraska and wanted to do a pivot, moved out. Now I'm in tech. So I live out here in the Bay Area in Oakland, and I've been here for 3 years now. And I've been a horse player all my life. I mean, I come by it honestly through my dad, through my uncle, through my grandpa, etc., going all the way back to Exarban, RIP,
Yeah.
So, I used to go out there when I was a kid. So, and I will admit that this is not the only Horse Players Happy Hour winnings that I've had. Last year or 2 years ago, I did the same thing, and I won a half entry. And so at that point in time, and still to this day, 5,000 is a lot. So I sold my half entry to somebody. And so, but it's not the only time I've reaped the benefits of the Horse Player Happy Hour, which is
That's great. And we love the idea that this is a tournament where you can compete against some of the bigger names in the contest world, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, I mean, and I get it. Live bankroll play, it can be expensive. I still think the BCBC, even if you're a lower bankroll player, you could go there, even if you're not like super duper comfortable betting that high, if you're going to win, you probably have to take a win or go home approach. But
Absolutely.
There's so many NHC seats now. You could go play the way you're going to play at a bit higher of a level, be a little bit more strategic, try to get up in the low rungs of the money, and walk away with an NHC seat and get the chance to enjoy that experience as a horse player. Have you given much thought to how you're going to approach the big tournament come this November?
I haven't yet. I'm gonna honestly, the one thing that I'm gonna probably do is I'll probably listen to you guys a lot and make sure the one thing. And I'll be completely honest. I'm a good handicapper. I know that for a fact. I'm not a good bettor. I just am not. And so I need to hone in on my betting skills and my ticket creation. I think that's probably where I need to. My opinions, I feel are good, but my gambling, my ability to create tickets is just, it's not as good as I should be. So
I think you should get some practice. Yeah, I would highly recommend playing in some other lower buy-in live bank stuff and just getting some practice, figuring out different ways to do it. And also, I think you just need to make the decision. It's a very different strategy if it's win or go home, in which case, and ironically, I think the betting gets a lot simpler if you take a win or go home approach, because it's, hey, let me find the 2 or 3 spots where I'm going to push all in. If that's not in your betting personality, especially after you hit the first 1 or 2 and you get that big number up there, that's not for everybody. That 40,000 worth of Dutch doubles is not a strategy, not a tool that everybody has in their toolkit. But there's still other ways you can approach it just by coming up with whatever strategy suits your betting personality. Hopefully something very simple and straightforward where you can have ideas of bets and then sort of plug and play with the opinions you like, and also just getting used to that idea. I do think you want to have some ability to do some form of Dutching. If you know how much you're willing to risk, rather than just winning radically different amounts, depending on what your opinion is, bet more on the combinations you like more and or that are going to pay less. And I don't like the idea of you going in just cold at the BCBC doing that, but there are contests every week. Our friends and partners at NYRA have low money live bank contests. You could start to hone your skills, and then come BCBC, you just got to put a 0 or 2 on the end of some of those.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I know one thing is strongest opinions, heavily weighted. And obviously I won't know until the fields are constructed, but that's something that that I'm probably going to try to focus on is strong opinions.
2 more topics we have to get to before I let you get out of here. One, we've got to go back to the way that I knew your name in the first place, the cheese. Did you work? Was it a hobby? Did you work for a cheesemonger? What was the connection? And I would imagine you're pretty pleased with the cheese scene out there in the Bay Area.
Yeah. I mean, we have Cowgirl Creamery out here, which is amazing. Honestly, like my former partner, she was a cheesemaker. She made some really amazing camembert, and I helped make 200 pounds of mozzarella every week. And it was definitely a hobby in a sense, but I was just trying to support my partner. And so I did that. And I think that you sent me your book, and I sent you some cheese, and I think it was a fair trade.
A beautiful relationship. The other thing that I got to talk to you about is your shirt. Far Hills, that amazing race meet in New Jersey. It's one of the ultimate, if you know it, you know things, because you'll get 40,000 people there basically tailgating. These days, it must be fascinating with not only on-site wagering, but also fixed odds betting, presumably, come the fall. I might try to get out there. We actually, as part of the River D partnership that I was part of many, many moons ago with Sean Clancy, we won the stake, the young horse stake out there one year. Very fond memories of going out to Far Hills. How did you come about the shirt?
As I said, I come by horse racing, honestly. My uncle was in the game. My dad's been, my uncle had some horses, and unfortunately my uncle passed away 3 years ago, and I inherited a whole slew of pun intended of things from him, just vintage sweatshirts to, I think he literally had, and I'll say the three letters, he probably had 150 daily racing forms, just like the big ones that you can, I think you can still get those in Canada, like the big ones just sitting around. And so I just was trudging through everything, and I kind of got the pick of the litter. So
that's phenomenal. And what a great way to honor him, who is obviously a serious and terrific horse player by trotting those out from time to time. We'll have to have you on again just to see what shirt you put on. And yeah, you mentioned the daily racing form stacked around. Many a horse player's relationship back in the day was ended by a significant other saying that's it. We're not going to have 250 daily racing forms in the closet. I don't care, if you have to go back and look at that chart from 3 years ago, because of course, back in the day, pre-formulator, this is the kind of insanity that people would do. But Sam, thank you so much for your time today. Congrats on the big win, and we'll see you on the leaderboard. Now you've got, you said 10th, so only a couple of tour points, but hopefully you'll keep this going and you can get another one.
I will. I'm playing today. I'm glad it's at Indiana. That's kind of fun, a little different. So that's amazing. I did want to say one thing, and I wanted to give everybody the best angle that I've ever had in horse racing, and it's actually hit, I think, 3 out of the 4 last times. The last race at Oakland on their card, and this is due to you all, bet the 10 strike horse, because that is their derby. I think this last one, the horse went off.
Trails End.
It's like a starter allowance mile and 3/4. I think the last 3 of the last 4, it's hit. So hopefully not a whole lot of people are take heed to this, because it is pari-mutuel wagering. But that's the greatest angle in horse racing that I've come to know at this time.
Yeah, Marshall would rather win the Trails End than the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And Clay's right there with him, as are the rest of the partners. Sam, we got to run, but I really appreciate your time, and we will be talking soon.
Thanks. Take care.
That was fun. I got confused if I was watching the video or I was like live there for a second. But Matt's visage clued me in. How fun was that? I mean, that's what it's all about to me. And we know I want to do more of that, where we bring on people who've had big successes, whether they're doing well on the tour or we had fun when we did the player profiles at the final table last year. We will be having that final table format again. We'll talk more about that as the year goes on. But always great, and I know you've done a great job with that too, Matt, being able to feature some of the listeners and viewers on your show over the years.
What must 200 pounds of mozzarella look like? 200 pounds. That's a lot of cheese.
They're not playing. They weren't
That's a
playing
lot of
back
cheese,
then.
man.
A lot of pizza. That's a lot of capres.
It's a lot of things.
It was good stuff too. The man has talent. But it's really, really fun getting to talk to him. I think we're getting pretty close to the next Indiana race, if my math is correct. Craig, you can help out by popping it up on the screen for a second. Yeah. So I think this is going to work out perfectly, because that will still leave us plenty of time to do our opening of the last of the late week show after we do this race, and then we'll do the leaderboard one more time and hop off the air. But we had some other fun comments I wanted to get into. Wayne wanted to know if we had a theory on what happened with Jackie's Warrior in last year's Breeders' Cup. Where do you stand? Do you have a quick answer for that? And off the top of your head, I'm going to pull up the PP and see if anything comes to mind.
He had I believe it was an ankle.
Gotcha.
And he immediately went and had surgery after that. And
okay, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, I could be. It's either an ankle or a knee, one of the two. I mean, honestly, that's the only dud he's ever run. Truthfully, right. He's not a route horse as far as a 2-turn route is concerned. And he's back. I think he's as good as he's ever been. So I'm basically drawing a line through the Breeders' Cup. Unfortunate timing for Steve Asmussen and everyone involved with him. But I would have no worries about him in any race that he's going to run in this year.
Right, because you could point to the pace, but he's run those kind of pace figures before and done fine. He was on the inside, and I don't think the inside was great, but that wasn't enough of an excuse. I feel much more comfortable saying, maybe he wasn't on the right part of the track or whatever, but the dud was much more of a product, I think, of something physical going wrong. And obviously,
knee chip.
It's been all systems go since, right? I mean, what has he done this year? He's 3 for 3, and he's been basically. The first race the Count Fleet wasn't great. Nearly got run down late, but I mean, whatever. That was off the layoff, so you figure he needed that one. And then he's looked really good in the two starts since, even getting that little bump at the start in the True North, and it didn't bother him at all. He was basically out for a morning gallop in the afternoon. So yeah, he's a fun one. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with him. Let's see what else. This is very funny. I don't know what this is from our man Kimbo, noting the whiskey that I sampled on the trip. There were a few that did I have any earned brew to cure hangovers? I will say I avoided being wretchedly hungover as a seasoned professional at this point. I do know where the limit is, but I'm very curious. I will now Google what an earned brew is. That's pretty funny. Looking for a trainer to follow at Saratoga from a current form and historical standpoint. First name that comes to my mind, Matt, is Brendan Walsh, as more of just a guy who I feel like has sort of made that leap up to the upper echelon, and maybe the market doesn't, and maybe it'll change because it changes in a hurry sometimes, where then all of a sudden all of his horses catch more money just because they're him. But I feel like at Saratoga, when you're going to have so many Mott and Clement and Chad Brown horses taking money in the same races, I think that Brendan Walsh is an interesting one to keep an eye on. Does anybody leap out to you as somebody either historically a pet trainer angle at Saratoga, or specifically somebody in current form who you think is going to have a big meet?
No, I mean, I usually try to kind of distance myself from getting attached to one specific trainer, just because I think if you do that sort of thing, you could possibly set yourself up for a long meet, and knowing that Saratoga is 8 weeks long or 9 weeks now, whatever it may end up being. I know this isn't breaking news or anything like that, but we've talked about it in the past. I'm more interested in when you get toward the end of the meet. It doesn't even have to be that final week. I think it's getting earlier and earlier. You get some of these big outfits that you see these horses that look like they're making sort of questionable moves in class, dropping from a graded stake to a 50 claimer. And that, granted, that's aggressive, but whether it's a trainer or an owner, or in many cases, both kind of, in tandem, in lockstep, that's not necessarily a bad thing. These
Right.
individuals are looking to win trophies. They want to win titles, trainer of the meet. You want to win the owner's award. Those are the things that I've really become more in tune with. And any other day, I look at a move, an aggressive drop in class, and say, oof, they're trying to get rid of him for a reason. No, at Saratoga, they're not trying to get rid of him necessarily. They're looking at it saying, if he gets taken or she gets taken, great. Or not great, but it is what it is. Let's try to win a race. We want to add our tally, tick, 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 tick. Those are the things that I'm looking for from a trainer standpoint.
I think that's excellent. And that's a question we're going to revisit. We're going to do a special Saratoga meet preview next week. We did the lifestyle show already, but this one will be more from a handicapping specific point of view. I believe we've got Paul Matisse and Sean Borman slated to come on and do that one. Let's talk about this race at Horseshoe Indy as we are down to the nub here with 0 minutes to post. Who did you come up with in here, Matt?
I had nothing super brilliant. I do think 9-5 is fair on the 2, though. Jova, first off the claim for Kim Hammond's barn. I know it was against Lesser last time out, but this horse can win on the lead or just off of it. The figs all suggest that this is the fastest horse in the race. I think there's a lot to like about this horse. And again, 9-5, I really don't think that's a bad price. I think that's pretty fair.
I agree. I think that may come in even just based on what I'm seeing. I wonder where's the money going that I wasn't expected to go. The 8, I guess, from a pace point of view, people are thinking maybe that's the way to go. But I don't think Jova's going to be far behind. I'd bet Jova at that number, and I wouldn't mind betting Jova even if we come into 7-5 ish, just based on the numbers and what might be a positive barn switch. So yeah, we're going to ride. We'll win or lose together here with Jova in the 6th race at Horseshoe Indy. Any other thoughts on this race? Did you see anything interesting at a price?
Well, just kind of purely on the numbers side of things, the will pays, the 2 isn't even half of what the 7 is. The 2 for a $2 double is going to pay just under $10. The 7 is $16. And the 7's currently your third choice, but a slight third choice. The pick 3s are basically on par, $21.80 for the 2 versus $40 for the 7. So I think when, barring some sort of a big late bet to win on the 2, I think you're probably looking at sort of 9-5 versus 3-1 or 8-5 versus 3-1, somewhere thereabouts. So I don't know that this is going to move too much again, unless someone goes, and makes a pretty healthy win bet. You can see the win pool is not massive. So, a few $100s could shift things. But I don't know that you're going to get a dramatic change as far as these odds are concerned.
Well, it makes me feel good about just going ahead and sticking with Jova. And that's a great point just in general that people can do themselves. Look, I'm not saying late odds changes aren't annoying. They're exceptionally annoying. And they're something that horse players have to deal with and grapple with. But one of the tools that you have to try to figure out what's going on and predict what's going to be the closing price in the market is to look at those will pays in bets like the pick 3 and the double. And yeah, they can be very predictive and give you a little bit of confidence that, okay, you know what? I am going to go ahead and bet the 2 here. And I'm not saying the horse isn't going to go off at 6-5, but I mean, I'd still be okay with that. I don't think this is going to be an instance where we see the 2 flash up at the end at 4-5 based on that those numbers that Matt was citing. You never know it for sure, but I'd feel pretty confident about going ahead.
To your point, there's never a guarantee with the way that this game is set up, just purely from a pari-mutuel standpoint and when the last money comes in. But I think it's the most accurate way to try to gauge what you can project for a number. There are always going to be those random instances where someone just loves the horse. And, if there's $10,000 in this win pool, somebody drops $1,000 right before the gates break and the horse is 3-5. Who knows? It's possible. But I think the best way to truly try to gauge what you're looking at is to use the will pays, specifically the double. But I do think you can go another step with the pick 3, especially if you get kind of an odd result in the double the leg prior, just because that can kind of skew things a little bit there's a little bit more noise there than signal.
I have some information about Earn Brew. This is a Scottish carbonated soft drink, often described as Scotland's other national drink, clearly behind whiskey, produced in Westfield, Cumbernauld, North Lancashire by A.G. Barr of Glasgow. Anyway, you learn something every day. Fortunately, I did not have to deal with too many wretched hangovers, but I'll bet it would work better as a hangover cure if you put a shot of vodka in there.
That is why you come and you hang out with us for Horseplayer Happy Hour, to find out what an Earn Brew is. Not to watch the horses, not to talk about stuff, just to figure out what the heck an Earn Brew is.
We're off here at Horseshoe Indy. As predicted, the 8th Cap de Fuego seizing the lead. Jova does get backed into evens. We'll see if that's the final price. There could be one more shift. Hopefully, if there is a shift, it's a back shift. But I have to say, I was expecting Jova to be a little bit more on the heels of the 8 Cap de Fuego here. I'm not loving what I'm seeing, but we'll see. Horses, is that the 2 in the blue cap moving into 3rd? Is that who that is? No, that's the 3. Where is this horse?
White cap. This horse may finish last.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh well. Well, that one didn't work out. But let's see who's going to win the race. It does look like that 3 was traveling all right. That's an 18-1 shot. Definitely a contest changer. If this thing can finish down the center, the 8 looks beat. Double tough. 5-2 logical favorite or second choice, making a nice move. The 8's not going away tamely, but I do think it looks like it's going to come 7-8-3 here at Horseshoe Indy, and that will certainly move things around on the leaderboard. Tough beat. If you had the 3 there, I feel for you, because the horse came into the race looking like might get the job done, and ultimately just didn't have enough to catch those 2 leaders. Very disappointing stuff from Jova, who I don't know where he ended up, but beaten a long way out.
Yeah, what a brutal effort from the 2. I mean, and it didn't seem like there was any real excuse. I guess you can say it was the hiking class, but I mean, this horse has won at comparable levels in the past. I don't feel comfortable using that as the excuse. This is a totally competent barn. Just not a good effort from this horse today for whatever reason.
Let's look at these Belmont Grade 1s. I'll bring it in here. Hello and welcome to the late week edition of the In the Money Players podcast. This is that fun thing we do where we co-produce Horseplayer Happy Hour with the In the Money Players podcast. PTF here alongside Matt Bernier. You got to come join us for these Horseplayer Happy Hours. We have so much fun during Saratoga, during Del Mar. We're going to probably be leaning heavily towards Saratoga, if I'm being honest, for various reasons. But we're going to just have that much more fun covering all the Breeders' Cup Win and You're In races. But this weekend, we do not have Breeders' Cup Win and You're In action, but we do have a pair of Grade 1 races at Belmont that I know that Matt has looked at and we want to take a look at. Let's kick things off, Matt, by looking at what goes as race number 7 on the card. It is the Belmont Oaks going 1.25 miles. We will have full coverage of the pick 6 a little bit later in the show. Matt Fagvolgi will be joining me to do that, but I definitely don't want to get out of here today without getting your thoughts on these big Grade 1s. Who do you like in the Belmont Oaks?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the Europeans all make sense with the Moonlight figures to be a little bit more forward than I think what we're accustomed to seeing from the Europeans coming over. Wouldn't be surprised at all if she ran a big one here. On the far outside, Concert Hall makes sense. She's been bet like a good thing in a number of Group 1s over in Europe. And look, you certainly don't want to discount Joey O'Brien with the way that he's been running. I'm going to do something on the fly right here and say I've made stupid calls in the past, and I know she is not the boss on figs. But if I could go like this and like this and go like this and go like this. Can you see that?
It's down in the bottom, and now we can pop it up into the stream. Now we can see it.
This is a tweet from October 17th of last year, 2021. The filly for Chad Brown is a monster in the making. Get used to hearing the name Haughty. I know she's slow on figs right now, but I truly believe she is a potential superstar. I haven't given Regal Glory, who's an older filly or mare going a mile, I haven't given her a fair shake as far as comparing her to some of Chad's best. From day one, I thought this filly shaped up like she could be a Sister Charlie, a Lady Eli type, and I could be way off. And on paper, she is slow. But I think this is the coming out party. I think she runs a big one. I don't know what kind of price you're going to get, but I like Haughty.
I like it. It's an interesting idea. And of the domestics, I tend to agree. The problem is you got a couple killers coming in here, it looks like to me. And the one I'm going to side with is With the Moonlight, Charlie Appleby. No introduction needed at this point. What's he done in the last few years in North America? We'll try 12 for 25 with a 436 return on investment. And I think you might get an okay price between the Brown contingent and between Concert Hall, who should be favored over With the Moonlight. This is an improving horse. Really like that debut of the season at Newmarket. Rob Dove, one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today, did a little in-depth write-up of all the shippers for our In the Money Plus members. If you're interested in that, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. But I will share that he computed that May race as a 91 buyer speed figure. The betting for her in the Oaks was weak, and she ran like it. It really didn't do much at all. But I think you can conjure various excuses for it. Dove, in his piece, suggested maybe it was as simple as a bounce. But I've just seen over the years, Epsom is such a quirky track that you do well not to hold Epsom form against runners. I think with the success that Appleby's had With the Moonlight has to be respected in the Belmont Oaks. I'll certainly be using Concert Hall in all of my vertical wagers. Aidan O'Brien has done very, very well with this race. Very, very strong form for Concert Hall, and another one who, you got to figure is just going to be finishing really well late and looks capable of running a low 90s buyer speed figure that could leave the Americans in the dust. But if one's going to step up, I tend to agree with you, Matt, that Haughty looks like an interesting one. Another quick thought on the Belmont Oaks before we move to the Derby?
With the Moonlight figures to be forward, Agatha figures to be, or at least she has been forward in her European races. How close is forward going from Europe to the United States, do you think? Do you think they're actually pressing the pace?
Yeah, if not on the lead. I mean, I hold that when people think of international races and they think of slow paces, they're thinking of France. England and Ireland, they run quick up front. And, if you hold a stopwatch to it, it might not look that quick because they, when you see fractions from there's none of this nonsense of a run up. You know what I mean? So I think people get the idea that these horses are slower than they are. I mean, we've seen with some of these shippers. Now, there's a separate issue too with, how are they going to get out of the gate? And the O'Briens just don't typically break well. So that's a real problem that we've seen some of them not break and then still go to the lead and win. So that tells you something. But obviously Appleby is as good as anybody at being able to adapt to the USA style of racing. So I think that, as far as he goes, I would expect her to be able to get in at least a decent position in the Oaks.
I think it's just a really fascinating race. I mean, I talk about it all the time. My preference is long distance turf racing. I know this isn't technically long distance at 1.25 miles, but I just think it's a great field. I love the fact that quality Europeans are coming over here to run in races like this, or the Saratoga Oaks or the Saratoga Invitational. I just think it's a really fun series that Naira's put together. And I love the fact that it's not as simple as just Chad and then everybody else. It's Chad or Aidan O'Brien or Joseph O'Brien or Charlie Appleby, Todd Fletcher, or whomever. It's just, these are some of my favorite races on the Naira circuit all year long.
Let's pivot to the Belmont Derby, which goes as race number 9, 5:12 on Saturday, 1.25 miles once again. Some very familiar names on the local side, runners like Emmanuel turning up here, Classic Causeway, a little bit of a surprise entrant as far as I was concerned, turning up here. We've got major European representation as well. Where did you land in the Belmont Derby?
Well, you and I both liked Emmanuel in that Pennine Ridge, and I just thought it was the most candy trip of candy trips for a horse trying turf for the first time. With the presence of Classic Causeway, I can't imagine that being the case. I think he's going to have to run a lot harder early on. Maybe that helps Napoleonic War. Maybe that helps Limited Liability, the horses that were pace compromised in that Pennine Ridge. of the foreign shippers, I suppose most people are going to look at Nation's Pride, and I understand why. I'm sure some people will look at Stone Age, who I thought had a dream trip really in the Derby, and maybe he just didn't see out the distance. You can, dive more into that. I ended up going, well, first things first, of the Europeans, I was actually a little bit intrigued with Machete. I thought all things considered, the way that he finished in that run in the most recent race over soft ground was encouraging. I think you take a look at his firm ground runs. I actually think he takes a pretty significant step forward. But I ended up landing on Tiz the Bomb. And, I understand maybe, he's been placed in some difficult positions. We haven't seen him run on grass this year, X, Y, and Z. I will say, I think all of his turf and synthetic races have all been exceptional. I think he's run really, really well in each one of them. Kenny McPeak even kicked the tires on the idea of sending him over to Royal Ascot. They chose to or I shouldn't say that. They were going to run him in the Guineas, whatever the situation was. They chose not to. They ran in the Kentucky Derby. He's not a dirt horse, flat out. He is a turf horse or a synthetic type. And I do think he has a big chance in here. And I hope there's a chance that he gets a little bit lost in the shuffle with the names that are in this spot. If I can get close to double digits, I think that would be very, very fair on Tiz the Bomb.
It's an interesting case, and I get it. The horse has shown a lot of quality and has been, at least the last day, running on the wrong surface. I think you nailed your analysis of the European runners. I mean, yes, those big names are big contenders, but I don't know that either of them are going to offer, a ton of value at the prices that they're going to be in terms of Nation's Pride and Stone Age. I think Machete is the interesting one. And you take a look at this form, Machete with close-up form behind the French Derby and Eclipse winner Vadeni. This horse really makes a lot of sense. And looking at Dove's figure analysis, again, from the In the Money Plus piece, I'm not going to give away everything, but I will mention he has Machete running to about a 90 buyer with potential to improve and to steal his line from our piece. And this horse is going to be a big price. I think Machete has a chance to cut them down in the Belmont Derby.
I like that. That's good. And I'm glad to hear that someone who is in tune with the European racing kind of agrees. And I mean, do you throw any credence into that fact as well, that I just feel like, potentially getting back to firm turf is going to be to this one's benefit as well? Not to say that he didn't run well in some of the races with sort of softer going, but I think very clearly that run two back at Chantilly was the best he's run. And that was behind a horse that we've seen go on and do bigger and better things.
I think it makes all the sense in the world. Now, I don't know, there's pedigree analysis to be done on that as well. But just looking at the form we have for a horse that acts well on synthetic and ran the best race, and a best race by kind of a lot, I think, on the good ground there to Vadeni two back. I think it's a very reasonable hypothesis about Machete. I wouldn't leave this horse out. I don't think you're going to see 20-1, but you never know. I mean, we see strange things happen with these shippers sometimes that come from, connections that aren't the ones that we always see. So I think there's a real chance there could be some fireworks in the Belmont Derby, and I'm definitely interested to see how your selection gets on, Tiz the Bomb, and how Machete does as well. Again, for much more, you can check out Dove's analysis over at In the Money Plus. He always comes up with some good stuff, but it's going to be a great day of racing at Belmont. And yeah, you mentioned one other thing I did want to get back to that you mentioned is about the Stone Age and what happened exactly in the Derby. And it's this horse just makes sense as a winner of this race. Really looks very, very similar to a runner like Bolshoi Ballet, who won this race last year, but ended up not being anything special. I didn't really see an excuse. This is a horse, again, makes all the sense in the world. I'm not getting beaten out of the picks if Stone Age wins. I just don't think is a particularly enticing bet on breeding. The distance shouldn't have been the issue. So it's hard to know what the heck was going on there the last day. But I think that I will back up with that one. I'll back up with Nation's Pride, but most of the money will be running through Machete. And if we're right on this one, we're going to get paid.
Is there sort of a closing thought? Do you have an opinion on Emmanuel? Is it just a matter of the pace dynamic is going to be not entirely different, but certainly different than what he faced in the Pennine Ridge. Or, I mean, look, this has just been a horse that's been cut out to be good from day one. You know, do you just not, let's not give him short shrift just for the fact that he's probably going to have to work harder on Saturday.
I made my biggest bet of the year on Emmanuel in the Pennine Ridge. I mean, I really like the horse, and that was a very, very good result for me. But I mean, it was, as you pointed out, the perfect situation and the candy trip of all time. I mean, I think he could come back and win. As a fan of the horse, I won't be mad. This won't be a throw my hands up in the air. How the heck did that win? Only I didn't say heck, like in the Kentucky Derby. But I mean, for me personally, usually when you say last time was the time, you're talking about a horse that was a big price and circumstances conspired to put it in the winner's circle. So it's not a classic last time was the time, but for me, kind of last time was the time for Emmanuel. I mean, I wouldn't be mind to be wrong, but I just think this is a much, much, much tougher test.
I tend to agree with you. And frankly, I wish that fig, I know it's hard to get a fast fig in a slowly run race, but boy, he's consistent. And that's not necessarily what you need in a spot like this, because I don't know that those numbers that he's consistently earning are fast enough to win. Doesn't mean he can't move forward. Doesn't mean he can't pass horses if somebody else like Classic Causeway is intent on the lead. But I just think I'll be curious to see how they bet him. But I just think he has a number of questions that need to be answered going 1.25 miles on Saturday.
It's definitely a little tricky. Tis the Bomb is interesting from a figure point of view. I mean, when you look at the USA horses that you're confident can run a non-dirt figure like fast enough to win this, he's one of the ones I would definitely put forward as a horse that I'm pretty confident is supposed to run the kind of figure that can win this race. And I mean, he probably should be 6-1. There's just so many ways to go in here.
Yeah, and I'm saying 10-1, double digits. That's with the hope that, the Appleby sort of aura kind of takes over now. And it's what Aidan O'Brien's horses used to be, that now anytime Appleby has a runner, everybody just gravitates towards him and says, oh, well, they're going to win, or they're going to run big. And the fact that it is Kenny McPeek, who, as great and brilliant a trainer as he is in New York, I think people look at Todd and they look at Chad and you see the Europeans coming over. Maybe there's a chance this one gets lost a bit in the shuffle. Maybe I'm being cautiously optimistic. But I will say, I think he has run quite well in every one of his races that has not been on dirt, including that Breeders' Cup last year, where I thought he flew on at the end after a less than stellar trip. I'm intrigued to see what we get from him. Maybe he can't pass the acid test, but I think he should be a playable price. And as far as the Americans are concerned, I think he has as good a chance as any.
I would agree with that. We've run long. I do have one more question about this race before we get out of here, though. What do you make of Classic Causeway in this spot?
I don't like it personally. I think it's a matter of, this is a horse that I'm trying to think of the right way of putting it. I wish it was a bit of a softer spot to start. I have no idea if he's going to be able to work on the turf. And I understand maybe there is a little bit of pedigree, but with his running style, with Emmanuel in here, who I think may just be a better horse, Classic Causeway would probably need to do something. Not only would he need to win on a surface for the first time that he's trying it, but he's probably going to need to either go faster than he wants to early, or sit off of Emmanuel, pass him, and then hold off not just the best American turf horses we have that are 3-year-olds, but some of the best international turf horses that we have as 3-year-olds. I think there's a lot going against a horse like Classic Causeway in here. Selfishly, I'm okay with it because I think he can help set the pace for Tis the Bomb.
De facto rabbit, right? I mean,
yes.
Not that they're not literal rabbit, but I mean, this horse, based on the last run, was crying out for a cutback, and now they're going longer. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I'm completely against. I think that David was a little wise guy with his morning line, making this one as far out as 12-1. I still feel like the famous name is going to drive the horse's price a little bit down below the 12-1 anyway. Maybe I'm wrong. I wouldn't even bet him at 12-1. So, I mean, I get where David's coming from with that morning line. David Aragona, the NYRA morning line maker, the best in the business as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, I feel like he's the potential takeout reducer, as it were, when it comes to the Belmont Derby. All right, Matt, that was good stuff. Really appreciate having you on for that, and really appreciate having you on in general for these Horse Player Happy Hours. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
No, looking forward to the weekend's racing. Think these 2 races at Belmont are going to be great. And you've also got big racing all over the place. We've talked about Horseshoe Indianapolis, They've got big races, the Indiana Derby, the Iowa Derby's happening at Prairie Meadows. I think the Los Al Derby's happening out in Southern California. We've got a number of big races this weekend as we get ready for next week, which we all know, opening week up at the Spa.
It's going to be fun. I apologize. There were a lot of great questions we weren't able to get to. Feel free, leave them again. If it's something you really want answered, hit me up on Twitter at Looms Boldly. I can answer there, or inthemoneypodcast.com through the contact page. Normally we like to interact more. We just, I ran long with Sam and but that was too much fun. So I don't feel bad about that at all. It's just the way things go sometimes. And obviously we ran long on the show today, but anyway, Matt, we'll let you get about your evening. There's a lake and a little girl who wants to go swimming with me. So we're going to do that now and going to get out in time to serve up this brisket. It's going to be a pleasing night here at the lake in the great state of Maine, which I know you're a big fan of.
Yeah, I'm partial. I don't mind it.
Great stuff. Thank you to producer Craig. Thank you to everybody for watching, especially those of you who've taken the time to make a comment. Again, apologies. We try to get to all of them that we can, and this week it just was a little bit tricky. This show has been a production of In the Money Media and the Breeders' Cup. On the In the Money side, our business managers, Drew Coatney, our chief creative officers, Jonathan Ginchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.